Good morning. On behalf of Engineers Australia, I'm delighted to welcome you all to today's webinar, Connected Construction Build Smarter. My name is Amanda and I'll be your host for today. Firstly, in keeping with our custom, Engineers Australia acknowledges the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to them, their cultures and to elders past and present. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that today's webinar is being hosted with Engineers Australia's industry partner, Autodesk. For over 4 decades, Autodesk have worked together with their customers to transform how things are made, and in doing so, they have also transformed what can be made. Today, Autodesk solutions span countless industries, empowering innovators everywhere, but they are restless to do more and don't believe in waiting for progress. They believe in making it. By combining and recombining technologies, by blurring boundaries, reinventing rules, and merging fields, by unleashing talent and unlocking insights across industries, and by helping their customers converge on solutions to the challenges we all face today. Today, we will hear from 3 speakers, followed by a live audience Q&A. And as always, I encourage you to send questions through to our speakers via the YouTube chat box. I'd now like to welcome our first speaker, Sumit Oberoi, Senior Manager, Industry Strategy, Autodesk. In his role, Sumit is a key contributor in defining and executing strategic construction priorities. Sumit is a passionate industry advocate who believes in helping industry deliver quality projects through construction innovation. Sumit formerly held directorships with Plumbing Joint Training Fund, Plumbing Industry Climate Action Centre, Air Conditioning, Refrigeration and Building Services Exhibition, and the Australian Refrigeration Council. He also represented the AMCA at the Australian Construction Industry Forum and the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
Well, thanks a lot for the warm introduction. Absolute pleasure to be here with my colleague Madge Abudaga. We're really proud of our partnership with Engineers Australia and really enjoyed running a number of these seminars remotely. So thanks for joining us today. I'm Sumit Oberoi, Senior Manager in our Construction Strategy and Partnerships business. And today we wanted to share our view in terms of beyond the build, unlocking performance through connected construction. I'll start off by disclosing our safe harbour. We will be sharing, we may share some things of a forward-looking statement in terms of our outlook. So we really encourage you to do your own research in terms of the commercial decisions that you'd like to make on behalf of your organisations. As you can see here, to set the scene, we're seeing some interesting dynamics playing out in our economy. Data centre and private investment are really supporting Australia's project pipeline. We've seen a significant increase in the number of infrastructure projects, and also specifically, if we look in the structural growth opportunities, we're seeing the global AI race and transition to net zero being front and centre to what we're doing. So this is some data that's been provided us from Deloitte Access Economics, and their monitor here suggests that 37 billion worth of data centre investment is undertaken in Australia, so an increase in 60%. Also saying that the private sector is really buoyant and an opportunity to grow the value of new projects in the system. So we're seeing a real dynamic playing out between the private investment growing faster than public investment towards 2029. If we also look at some of the challenges in our industry, construction sector growth continues, but we are constrained with skills and the costs. So in these diagrams here, you can see that we are facing a number of skill shortages, which are affecting our growth potential. There's also been a real rise in dwelling and non-dwelling construction. So commercial sector is sharply driven over the past year. So we're starting to see a real interesting dynamic playing out in the economy. When we move to the next slide here, we'll start to see that the industry pressures are mounting. So the rising costs and tighter margins, which were identified in the earlier slide, the workforce challenges, compressed scheduling and increased project complexity. And then we're seeing more and more growing sustainability and compliance demands. A lot of government policies coming through, particularly in the mandatory disclosure of carbon reporting. That's getting cascaded down to the next rung or the next tranche of contractors that are going to be exposed from July this year all the way to 2028. And then we're seeing a real surge in disconnected and unused project data, which is really challenging the delivery for clients. Innovation's accelerating, so we're seeing a real surge of investment. A significant amount of capital has come through venture capital funding since 2014, and a lot of it's looking to address labour shortages, productivity, and risk reduction. We're also seeing that a number of industry leaders globally are looking for ways of moving from ad hoc innovation towards structured programs. So the below examples here of accelerators where many head contractors, particularly in the US, have set up accelerators. And that's a way of testing particular use cases on projects to see how it can be part of their standard or tech stack moving forward. But today's tools often fall short. We've got friction across project life cycles, we've got data gaps and limited visibility, and we've got a proliferation without integration. So, the amount of manual handover that we continue to grapple with in our industry, we also see a lot of limited visibility and then the siloed workflows. So it's something that at Autodesk we're really looking at how we resolve these three things. And why we're doing that is because we see that there's a great opportunity to address construction and engineering data that goes unused. There's also a lot of work that's being spent on non-optimal activities, and the amount of work that's spent on, the rework that's caused by poor data and communication. And so we really want to be able to be in a position to close the gap between, connecting people, processes, and insights for better industry outcomes. I'd now like to invite my colleague, Madge Abudaga, to take this presentation forward. Thank you, Madge.
Thank you, Sumit, for a great presentation. I'd now like to welcome our next speaker, Madge Abudaga, Account Executive, Autodesk Construction Cloud. Madge is a civil engineer and construction technology leader dedicated to driving digital transformation within the AEC industry. With over 14 years of experience and a master's in construction project management, he bridges the gap between field-proven project delivery and cutting-edge digital adoption. Currently an account executive at Autodesk, Madge partners with construction organisations to implement the Autodesk Construction Cloud, helping teams streamline workflows and achieve measurable business value. Having contributed to several landmark projects, he remains committed to delivering practical, people-centred digital solutions that empower the modern workforce.
Thank you, Sumit. Good morning, everyone. So before we start talking about how we can enable different technologies and leverage the data that we have, the first step that we need to figure out why we are losing data. So the main reason for the fragmentation of the process is because of data, is the loss of data when it's shared between different project phases. So from planning to design to construction and operation and handover. There's actually an explosion of data. Even it's harder to move data from one place to another. Today, data is gold. 80% of owners and operators want to get better data to make better decisions moving forward. Today, they are not getting the data. Following today's process, every single time handover occurs between a phase to a phase or a team to another team, a data loss happens, which leads to inefficiency and risk. So how to solve this data loss? So before we can unlock the full potential of AI and different technology we want to apply to our data insights, first we need to make our data accessible for everyone. So everyone can store their data in one common place, which we call common data environment, with a language that everyone understands, with data fits that it's linked to something that makes sense, whether it's linked to an asset or linked to a location or it's linked to a project or a cost code. So whenever we do an input of data, the system knows where did this data belong to. So it's not only collecting as much data as we can, but we need to make sure that we're having the right data. So when our data is accessible, useful, and connected, it becomes insight, and insight drives smarter, faster decision across your teams. So we can see a huge potential in using AI and machine learning in construction. So we had some research market from different third parties along Autodesk. So we can know that AI-powered tools, as an example, and services is projected to boost construction productivity by much as 20% the next 2 years. And also it might reduce the cost by 10 to 15% from construction industry based on reducing reworks and making sure everyone getting the correct information on the right time. And on the long term of a projected 71% growth in profit potential. So teams, companies, and project managers can manage their project better and reduce costs and reduce reworks, which will drive and boost growth in their profit. And finally, based on our internal research on Autodesk, we found like top 2 investments in construction industry happening now is on AI and machine learning. So if companies didn't start now investing in these tools, they might lose their competitive edge. So when we talk about why AI is powerful, so the power of AI lies in the insights that it can deliver from analyzing all the unstructured data that we have. We frequently get requests from different teams and from new project managers to understand what happened previously, what went wrong, and what went right on these projects. So if we have a tool or we have a platform that can let us know all these informations whenever we need them, imagine how much it can be benefit for the current projects and future projects. With AI, you will be able to take full advantage of learning from cross-projects analysis, what went right on the best projects and what should we avoid, and learn from the projects that we were over budget and behind schedule. Those insights will be delivered automatically. So what AI can do for construction? So imagine being able to run constructability review with help of AI, of generative AI. Also imagine getting early cost estimates even before you finish the design. You have an on-spot cost estimates that you can leverage and estimate. And also you can imagine also getting an AI assistant that help you with your company identify what the projects fits within your portfolio and what projects can make margins profits on them. And finally, imagine that all the change orders and RFIs that we have in construction, a tool like AI can help you identify what's the root of that problem, how to solve them. If there is an already existing information that can support that change order or RFI, which saves a lot of time for all the specialist people that we have them in the project and let them focus on doing the work and then sharing the informations. Finally, we hope if we have one key takeaway from this, we need to having a data-centric environment is a must. It's not just something fancy, but it's something that each construction company work toward it. So in construction, we have a lot of data, as we discussed today. It comes from systems, from design, project controls, and from field. But all this information are fragmented and inconsistent. So before we start leveraging this data, we need to consolidate all this data. So we bring all these sources into one connected common data environment and link them to a common ID like location, assets, and cost codes. This creates a single place to find the latest trusted information for everyone at any time through the project. Next, we need to process this information. So we need to standardize this data and validate the data. That the data are it's not about volume, it's about the correct data in the correct place. So this step turns raw inputs to a reliable decision-ready data. After that, we can analyze this data, measure the performance, measure what's on the project using what's driving cost, what's driving quality, and schedule all these projects. The focus shifts from reporting what happened to insight to understanding why it's happened, which leverage a lot of data insights and help project managers to make the correct decision. Once we process and analyze all this data, now we can visualize them in a good dashboards, reports. We can then make them specified by a role or by a group of people. So some dashboards for project managers to make decisions, some dashboards for people on site to have the latest information. All this can be customized after we standardize our data process. And finally, Once we done all of these, processing the data, visualize them, analyze them, now we can do better work by enhancing our project management, production, safety, commissioning, and operations by leveraging all this information. Once we have our data structurized, we have it in one data center environment, we can now easily structure our data and get a great insight from that. And plus, we can start looking about solutions about AI and machine learning. So once data is connected and trusted, AI becomes powerful, forecasting risks, spotting patterns, and automating updates with traceable resources. Connected data is foundations, and AI is the accelerator. We're not talking about here AI is replacing people, but AI will sure help people make better work day by day. Thank you, and now I need to hand over to to Theodore from Ericon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madge, for a great presentation. I'd now like to welcome our third and final speaker, Theo Galanos, Generative AI Leader at Aurecon. Theo is the Generative AI Leader and Advanced Design Lead at Aurecon, where he develops AI-driven workflows for engineering advisory teams and contributes to initiatives such as Aurecon's strategic partnership with Nomic to accelerate complex problem solving across the asset lifecycle. He is also the Chief Science Officer and co-founder of Infrared City, leading the development of AI-powered environmental simulation tools that make advanced environmental analysis accessible to designers and engineers. His background includes research roles at the Australian Institute of Technology, the creation of Architects Plus, published work in computational design and machine learning. Please welcome Theo Galanos.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for the kind introduction. My name is Theodoros Galanos, but please call me Theo, and I'm the Generative AI Leader at Aurecon. Today, I thought I would talk to you about Clarify, which is our AI-enabled platform for construction, but mostly I wanted to discuss what building such a platform taught us over time. So the slides of what the platform is and what it offers will be very limited, and we instead will go deeper into what we learned, what worked and what didn't work. If you do want to discuss about the platform, happy to do it later, but I feel and I wonder if it's more interesting to discuss the things that we found out over time. So I wanted to start by saying what this deck won't be in context of what I just said. So it won't be about promising an incredible increase in productivity, even though AI technologies can do that, even though Clarify actually does that. This is not a promise. This is not a sell of how we increase productivity. Instead, this is a story of how we learn perhaps a few lessons that lead us towards that increase in productivity. And it will not be about instant answers and end-to-end workflows. As I will discuss a few times, and I'm sure we will go into our discussion later, these models are incredible. It's almost like interacting with a magical technology, but they still have a gap in expertise, in knowledge, and intuition, even with respect to a lot of engineering tasks and a lot of engineering problems. So end-to-end workflows where autonomously an agent solves magically our problems are not there yet. We can build them, and they can work sometimes, but they're not there yet. So this deck won't be about that. So what is RFIs? I'm sure most of you know even better than I do, but requests for information are essentially a connective tissue for construction projects, right? And they are a bottleneck. Every project I've asked, they've told me something similar. They've told me how it can be a time-consuming activity, is a very repetitive activity, and not considered generally a high-value task, or let's say a high complexity or creativity task. But it's also very, very important and time-sensitive, right? And essentially is the middle steps where the time goes during project delivery. And it can have very serious implications in the history and the destiny of a project, even, right? So it's a difficult topic. At the same time, I think if you consider the task in its simplest form, it's also a simple problem, right? Or that's what we thought. It's a very simple problem. We have a question that needs to be answered. So what if we used our project information to create an answer, right? That's pretty much what you've seen or what you might see or hear around this space. But there are reasons to which I will go over that this is not as easy as it sounds. So what is Clarify? And here will be my main slide about the platform. And again, if you want to discuss, happy to do later, but I'd rather dive into the lessons learned. So Clarify has a few features, and most of all is a platform. Even though it started as a product, and it started as a product with a goal of solving this core problem of RFIs, it has become a platform for multiple reasons. One reason is to do more than just solve a specific problem. And the other reason, of course, is that we are in the era of workflows, right? We are in the era where workflows are consuming whole products, and it's a much more efficient approach to actually build platforms where many workflows can take place and can operate versus a product. One of these workflows is our RFI agent. Obviously, we started to try to solve this simple in some terms problem, but very, very complex turns out. And the RFI agent is actually a multi-step agentic workflow. It has all the buzzwords you've heard, and that searches through project documentation, specifications, previous RFIs, drawings, everything that is relevant for the response, even standards in local, regional client standards. And it has direct integration with platforms like Autodesk Construction Cloud. And also it provides review and refinement. We provide a means to our engineers to actually review and refine not just the outputs of the workflow, but actually how it operates. We have a way to showcase what the agent is actually doing, because essentially you can, with technology today, you can showcase it in natural language, right? And they can actually actively adjust that. At the same time, we have a lessons learned and an action tracker feature. So this is kind of like building upon the idea of project memory that we're starting to build in the platform. What if we have a memory over our project and over our whole projects and over client portfolios that never goes away and is always embedded in future projects and in future workflows? So for example, and that's what these two aspects are. So we have AI assisted capture of lessons learned and actions, and we make sure we coordinate all of that always with expert review. And of course, we have a growing number of other project specific delivery workflows that range from identify risks, extracting requirements, validating specifications, and other things. And that is growing over time because teams come to us with new problems, and we can quickly develop this sort of point solutions that would not necessarily require or benefit from a product of their own, but can be developed in a platform like Clarify. So that's all about Clarify. So what has worked so far? We have managed to do a faster RFI response. In the cases where the users interact with the technology, I think the response can be much faster. The quality of answers also, I think, goes higher. One thing that I noticed when I went through a lot of responses across different historical, let's say, projects, was that responses were not always detailed, and that totally makes sense. People are pressed, they have time sensitive, they have possibly a lot of things to do and a lot of things to respond to, and many projects perhaps at hand. And a lot of the times we reply by summarizing exactly what we know. And in the moment between two experts, that's perfectly okay, right? That short answer is perfectly understandable by the person they're replying to, and everything goes well, and you can see it in the responses historically. But if you try to read that a year later, even if you wrote it, it's very hard to understand what it means. What does it refer to? As we discussed in the previous meeting, here's the strategy we should follow, so let's do this. None of that is sort of like knowledge that can be retrieved later, right? It's all gone. It was implicit in our minds or in some artifacts that we never stored. So that's where project memory comes in. So what we've noticed is that models help enhance, sort of like, and ground these responses a lot more, give more information. So if we were to read them in the future, we get a bit better context around it. And as I said, the project delivery workflows are starting to work very well. We can do the long-running tasks that are quite time consuming, and we can help teams deliver faster. And of course, the real long-term value is that we gain intuition and experience around what it takes to build a platform like this, what it takes to build workflows in a platform like this, and what it takes to solve real problems in real projects. So that is the invaluable sort of output of that. So even if Clarify tomorrow doesn't exist, that doesn't matter, because we take all that experience and intuition with us to the next thing we do. So now what didn't work? So first of all, it turns out people don't want answers, even though this is a request for information and essentially a question to be answered. Engineers and experts that want to use tools that help them respond to RFIs don't want answers. What they want instead is an information journey, right? They want workflows that drive information discovery. They want that information displayed and curated in a nice format in front of their eyes quickly in a matter of seconds, and then they can do what they're trained to do, what their expertise lets them do. They can actually make decisions, right? So once that clicked, and it took a while to click because we started with the assumption that we need to help them answer directly, but once that clicked and we defined our workflows and our agent store discovery, everything changed, I think. The quality of responses, the quality of interaction with the technology, everything became, I think, a lot better. And there is still, of course, a lot more way to travel, but that was a big barrier. And if there is one lesson I can share with you today is that don't try to create answers for experts. They have the answers, but they need that information, contextual information, to quickly turn it into answers. So the other thing that happened is that adoption is hard, and feedback from experts is very expensive. It's very difficult to get, and adoption is hard because I think not just because technologies are not fit for purpose. And to be honest, when we first started, we went through many prototypes. Of course, the first versions were not totally fit for purpose, right? But the reason is because I think it it's when you introduce new environments and new ways of working to people and project teams that are already sort of like quite busy and actually want to deliver their work and keep doing what they're doing, right? So in a way, you need to find ways to integrate this process of improvement of a technology that requires them to be improved without disrupting, without causing any friction in what they're doing, and that makes adoption very hard. And at the same time, without their feedback, it's almost impossible to build like tools that become better over time. And feedback is really expensive to do. It doesn't really work. Like there's no thumbs up and down that will help you. The feedback that you need is sessions where experts and engineers really go deeply into what they think about interacting with this tool. What were the things missing? What would they like to have? And the details even in how the workflows and agents operate. So that has been quite hard, but even if you get small pieces of that, is incredibly valuable in improving your workflows. The third thing that we learned, of course, is what I mentioned. Products are becoming a platform where many products live in the form of AI workflows. That's what's happening around us. That's not just what I say, even though I say it constantly and repeatedly wherever I can. But it is the age of platforms. It is the age of single or few platforms and many products. And that's definitely somewhere we're already moving on. And this is an example of how you could do it. And it gives you a lot of freedom, actually. Suddenly, you don't need to put a lot of effort and cost and time in like developing infrastructure to sort of deploy point solutions. Instead, you work on actually developing solutions, which is actually very liberating. It's almost the same. It feels almost the same on our end as the engineers we are empowering, where the whole idea is we let them do what matters the most, right? So this product to platform lets also AI engineers and software developers and software engineers to work on what really matters, creating solutions. Another thing, of course, the question that always comes in mind, especially around construction projects, can it read drawings? I can answer it right now. No, not really. Yes, but no. That's the answer, right? Yes, it can read drawings. It can do certain tasks by reading drawings at a superhuman level, I would say. So, for example, if you wanted to check your title blocks and make sure they have specific formatting, yes, you can do this with an AI workflow, and it will be as good, if not better, than humans, especially if you put proper expert reviews and gates and quality control. But if we mean by that, can it actually see a drawing and try to contextualize a question and a problem and find a solution? No, it really cannot. That's the gap that I mentioned in the beginning. Even though Clarify, for example, does use and embed drawings and the information in the drawings in that information discovery journey, it doesn't try to pretend that it can read the drawing and design a strategy or a solution. That's for the expert to do. So we have this gap still. The way to close the gap, and perhaps that can be another interesting topic, is actually these workflows, right? The more of these workflows we build, curated by experts and tuned to perfection or as good as we can, the better data, the better environments we create where these agents can create data that can lead us to a place, to a world where these models can read drawings. And the other thing was that the real problems really found us. We started with RFIs in mind. This came actually from a client. We asked a client, what would be your biggest issue? And this is what they responded. But slowly we expanded. We saw that actually there is so many other small or big problems that we could help with. in project delivery. And that was the big value, right? We started from one place, but you should always be open to expand, especially in this age of AI workflows. And the last bit that I want to share is that client maturity is quite counterintuitive. And this, I say this by interacting with teams and different teams and clients. I think it's not always clear who will adopt or accept a technology like this beforehand, right? The assumptions we might have, we might say that, oh, a certain team or a group of people are not as mature as others. They won't accept it. It's not really it's not really true. I think the things that matter here is really being transparent in what AI really means in your workflows and in your platforms. Really disclose exactly what you do with AI and what you don't do. The same thing that I'm doing right now with you, right? We we discover information, we don't develop answers. Imagine being detailed about all the aspects of your product to that, and then be very clear around security, safety, data sovereignty, and all these requirements, right? That's, I think that should be an upfront thing that happens, and that's what we learned. That we are not leaning into anyone's maturity. Instead, we learned that we, uh, in a sort of transparent manner, showcase our maturity, and that has been the best way to unlock these technologies and the acceptance of these technologies. Okay, we discussed about workflows and not products. So we started building an application that was kind of monolithic, right? It had a single user journey. How can I respond to my RFIs, right? How can I do this one thing that I care about? But we went to a platform with composite workflows, and I think what is happening here is that the minute you switch to workflows and you sort of liberate yourself from the platform completely, even if Clarify wasn't here, all these workflows could be used in many other places within our business, right? And this can allow in the future and even now teams to already work inside the tools they're comfortable with, right? The idea is to deploy these workflows anywhere they are comfortable with, and that is a very important thing. So what we are doing now, instead of sort of like um, build features into a product, we build workflows into a platform. I will keep saying workflows all the time, as you notice. Uh, and maybe a couple of thoughts on what I think is coming. Right now, I think we are almost at the end of this era of AI assistants, right? There's still sort of like value with assistants, even though the real true value we see with agentic assistants, for example, AI coding assistants. But there is we are in this era of sort of like the first iteration of chatbots and AI assistants over a knowledge base. We are moving, and we have moved actually already. If you are paying attention, into an era where we are augmenting everything we do with AI through these workflows and through these agents. And maybe in the discussion we will also discuss skills and workflows. They are kind of like um, two sides of the same coin, the same autonomy coin, as I like to say, where workflows are defined, curated, the degrees of freedom are not too many because the experts have made them, and that's what it runs. They provide repeatability and consistency, while skills allow agents to sort of like do almost the same task, but with a freedom that allows them to think, how could I apply this workflow in this new setting, in this new project, in this new client? And I think both of these will have a lot of value and will be exactly how, in this near term, we augment everything we do with AI through these workflows and skills. And finally, I think, and this is completely speculation on my end, that we are moving to a horizon where AI actually will deliver services. I like to call this service as a software. In a way, we are going into a place where platforms and workflows will deliver outcomes, right? We will have sort of outcome based even pricing and business model, but more importantly, outcome based features, right? Things that we usually call or click or press or use will no longer just help us do a task. They will do that as well, but they will also complete whole tasks for us and provide whole services for us. And around that, we will need sort of like services that professional services that sort of sandwich around those deliveries in a way to adjust them to different contexts, to different clients, to different projects, to keep improving them. So that doesn't mean that suddenly we have a service as a software that just does an outcome and we don't need anyone anymore, right? It's quite the opposite. All that means is that we can now scale what we do, and professional services are more important than ever, right? To sort of like implement these services in the specific context. So if there were three things to take home from this presentation, I would say that don't lean into the first idea and the first solution, the first thing that you do. There is a beautiful video from John Cleese from the Monty Python, where he talks to actually a corporate audience in the 70s, I think, or maybe 80s, about innovation. It's a fascinating speech, and there is a small sentence that I like where he says, "I wasn't the smartest or the funniest person in Monty Python. There were other members that were much smarter than me, and yet I always wrote better jokes than them." And the reason was that I never gave in to that first idea. I always stayed with it. I always sort of like kept poking it, kept trying to find more, right? So that's very, in the age of AI, where solutions essentially or ideas can be tested almost immediately. Just keep searching and keep being investigative, I think, is probably a superpower. The second thing is like that trust is very important, right? You need to build internal trust with your teams and with your colleagues and with everyone that you collaborate with. That means you really need to bring them into the workflow construction. You really need to show them that they are actually the ones that are developing these things, right? They know how to solve these problems. They communicate that knowledge. They create these tools. And then transparently, as I mentioned, share that story with clients and others outside of your organizations, right? It can't just be that, we add sections about how we use AI and that's it. I think we are in an era where the sections of how we use AI have to be very practical. This is exactly how we use it. This is how we don't use it. And this is an example of how we will use it in this specific case. All of that transparency, I think, is needed and appreciated to give you that trust. Without that trust, there won't be any adoption. And again, the last sentence: think of workflows, not products. Everyone has a way of working, right? And every product has a sort of like shelf life. Workflows have an even smaller shelf life. They could be used in a project and go away. They could be used to solve a problem now and never used again. They could be used now and 3 years later in the future, readapted to a new problem. But that's the value they provide, right? The investment in building them is really only around building the solution to the problem that matters and not the infrastructure you need to deploy it. You only do that once. So think of workflows, not products. And yeah, thank you very much. And that's it from me. I hope that was interesting, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you for those great presentations. It's now your turn to get involved, and if you could please ask our speakers questions via the YouTube chat box and who your question is directed to. Thank you also to everyone who submitted questions whilst registering. We have received, and thank you, some product-based questions, and the Autodesk team will come back to you direct on those. So kicking off with you, Sumit, we have a question that's come in from Atty, who is watching in New South Wales, and it's a great question. He's asking, what is the AI impact, do you believe, on the construction industry in the next 5 years? Thank you. Thanks for that question.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda, and appreciate the question. Look, I think from the first starting point, the key philosophy moving towards AI is being in a position where you can leverage construction data in a centralized, structured and coordinated manner. So if you start to think about that, that will allow you to effectively attach the relationships between, what happens with your project informations, what's happening with the issues, your RFIs, these sort of things. And then the AI piece comes from the opportunity to provide a modeling environment where you can start to validate project histories, information associated with that's been structured accordingly, and then be able to unlock predictive insights. So this is part of the things, to sort of echoing Madge's presentation, the importance of having the structured data in the right format to be able to then leverage off the opportunities. And then we start to see how we apply that AI across the construction lifecycle. So seeing the opportunity around pre-construction and planning, it could be into the automation of sectioning our specifications, looking at our drawings and models. So you've got symbol detection and quantity takeoff, helping our estimating efforts, qualification, tender management, how that all comes together in a pre-construction perspective. Then we start talking about the opportunities around construction execution and risk management. So we can look at scanning information from the field and build checklists and observations associated with photos to see what's high quality or what risks are associated with those things in site. So, are there safety items that need to be looked at? Are they points of escalation? What metadata needs to be connected with what's getting progressed out in the field and how it's getting ordered? And then we start to think about other areas of knowledge access and productivity. So ways in which within our platform we can look at ways to improve the searching, the contextualization of querying something that's happening out there in the field, looking at particular information, could be specifications, and then focusing on ways to generate more accurate responses. And then we'll start to see from that area where you'll start to see more assistive and predictive, more advanced reasoning and physical and spatial context associated with that. So that sort of gives you a perspective of, where we're going to see more and more effort come into that. So how it's applied across pre-construction, construction execution, the knowledge access and productivity measures, and also ways of predicting the capabilities in the business, but also leveraging off other agentic capabilities.
Thank you for that, Sumit. Majd, we've got a question that's come in from Patrick, and Patrick's watching in Queensland, asking you, Majd, while technology can help us build smarter across different work streams, civil, mechanical, electrical, etc., by improving collaboration, do you see any technology-driven improvements that could help include considerations for maintenance over the life cycle of the infrastructure? I work in road infrastructure, and we often see high cost for traffic control as consideration wasn't given for maintenance access. While that may be reasonable for major maintenance, it can be frustrating for small works. Majd.
Yeah, I think this question is targeted to Theo, so I think he will be the better person to answer that from his experience. So I will leave it for Theo to comment on that.
Theo, apologies. This one was for you.
And welcome to 2021. Is it possible to repeat the last part, because I may have.
Yeah. Patrick's question is around. He's talking about considerations for maintenance over the life cycle of the infrastructure. He works in infrastructure and often see high cost for traffic control as consideration wasn't given for maintenance access, which may be reasonable for major maintenance, but frustrating for small works.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's asking any. Thank you.
I think asset maintenance and performance is definitely a field of very high value and high impact, I think, for AI. I think already multimodal AI is at the level that can at least make certain tasks around condition assessment more efficient. And we are exploring that space already, for example, and I think the early tests showing a lot of promise. The other thing that I think asset management and performance, this space has, that is a big advantage, is the way that data are not just generated, but the way that, in a way that data are kept, right? Even if you want to call it legacy data, it's not really legacy data. The way things are done, even without AI, generates, and this is very rare, very high quality structured data. So you can imagine, like, most of the data are probably sitting in spreadsheets or lists or asset registries, and each item has metadata and attachments and assessments and notes and pictures. So everything is very structured. And And I think that is a very big advantage that allows like experimentation and prototyping to start very fast. And the other thing that I think can be very important is the way you can sort of like embed the experts in all of this. So the way we go about it is we try to embed in a very detailed manner all the steps and the logic and the guidelines of the whole process. And here I'm thinking of condition assessment, but you can extend it to maintenance planning, to maintenance activities, right? And you can do that by simply sitting with the experts and the clients and the asset owners and sort of like trying either to understand or collect the practices they have already developed, to be honest, and embed them in your AI workflows. And yeah, I think the field is ripe for this sort of approaches to play a big role. And I'm actually very excited for that. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that. Madge, this question is for you. It's coming from Darshita, who is also watching in Queensland, asking you, I'm currently studying residential drafting at TAFE. What skills or knowledge in connected construction and smart building technologies should I focus on now to enhance my career opportunities? Great question.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. Great question, honestly. So to improve your career opportunities in connected construction and smart buildings, focus on learning BIM models and 3D models instead of only 2D drawing drafting. So you can create full house models that produce plans, sections, and schedules from one model. Also learn how to work in a cloud based system where teams are sharing files, commenting, tracking changes, and managing everything in the cloud, not only lock yourself in only software that's installed on your computer. Also understand the basics of model coordination, such as combining architectural, structure, and services models into one federal model and do clash detections and checking for them. Also build a good habit to organize the model data, which is the core of our presentation today. So the more we have structured data, we have clean set of data, we will be easier to navigate through the changes and the AI and everything. So creating clear data sets and understanding simple file exports such as the IFC. And finally, learn simple automation tools to speed up repetitive tasks and make your work more efficient.
Thank you for that. Theo, we've had a question come in from Patrick asking you, have you encountered any issues with AI hallucinations, where it has given back made-up information when it couldn't clearly determine an answer, by example, when a specification wasn't clear? Thanks, Theo.
I'm really sorry. I keep going back in time. That's a great question, and obviously we could do a whole webinar or seminar on this topic. Hallucination is a problem. It's sometimes or very often seen only as a problem. I don't think it is only a problem. It's also a feature, and it's very interesting because in the new way of applying AI or in the current way, which is through workflows and agents, which are similar things but not the same, you can see that it has this double role of like both a feature and a bug. So I've seen this many times, and I can tell you examples. Even we build workflows, for example, that try to use knowledge, right, to ground in specific knowledge and do some task or respond to some question. And a lot of the times, these workflows will just work and they will not fail. They are very robust, even if they never get any context, right? So exactly to the point of the question, you could have your whole workflow responding to a problem or a query and never contacting your knowledge base, right? And the model will still reply. It will obviously hallucinate because it has to reply something. And that's where you need to put your guardrails, and you need to understand those guardrails can be automated, right? There are ways to see these issues and fix them, right? But also like they need a lot of intuition by the users and the experts. So for me, for example, I'm pretty good by now identifying hallucinations. It's very interesting actually in the AC, in our industry. The minute you see an answer that seems a bit generic and cites US standards, you know it's hallucinated. That's the standard sign. But yeah, that is a bug, that is a problem, right? But it's also a feature because having workflows that are robust is actually a good thing, right? You can imagine scenarios where the model being able, despite issues or despite gaps in knowledge, provide useful information can be very useful, right? Especially in very complex tasks. It's just a matter of how do you tread that line of, like, on the one side this hallucination and then false information in some way. On the other side, something very useful you couldn't get to without in any other way because you have some gap in your knowledge, right, or in your application. So yeah, a big problem. It can also be an opportunity because it provides us with these robust workflows and agents that can do more than what automations have done so far or before generative AI.
Thank you for that, Theo. And Theo, just staying with you for the next question that's come in from Don, asking Theo, how does the AI learn from evolutions in the construction industry, and how do we ensure we aren't just repeating what we've done in the past and not stifling innovation? Thank you.
That's a very interesting question. The first thing I would do is a counter argument. Are we not doing this already without AI? It's probably our standard practice, right? Reusing what we know. In most cases, or in many cases, that's very good, right? We have best practices for that reason. We have things that work. We have validated tools that maybe we used for decades. We have physics and engineering formulas that we know for hundreds of years. So there are things that we should bring forward. That's what I mean, and we do it very often. The way we allow evolution, I think there are two ways through AI. One is we need to design systems, and those can be agents, workflows, whatever you want to call them, but they need to be human and AI collaborative systems, right? And it's not very hard to design. They already exist for people that do AI coding. We need to design those systems for the AC. We don't have that. I'm going to be very clear. This is my personal note now that I've been thinking for a while. We need, and we don't have, a VS Code for engineering, if that makes sense. A completely open source engine that can do things around the core parts of engineering. And once you have that, you can start tinkering, right? You can start exploring, and the next part that we need is we need people to interact with AI, not just to solve problems. We do this every day. It's our core focus, but we should also invest some time to just explore new solutions, right? Even starting from the point that the solutions we have to the current problems are not what we need. And these sort of research-driven human AI collaborations are very possible right now. For example, just last week we saw again, I believe it was 5.3 Codex solving another Erdos problem, right? Or it solved an unsolved, not problem, but I think it was a problem, unsolved problem or area or in string theory, right? How did that happen? Top world experts in string theory sat down, and if you see the article, they even said that we learned how to prompt and how to properly collaborate with the model. And only then we could create this thing that is completely new. We never had it before. So I think that's the other way to do it, is to find those modes of collaboration with this technology that allows us to think differently and like explore new things with our expertise. But to do that, we also need that sort of VS Code for engineering. We need that open source engine that the community itself can start hacking, right? To create these weird combinations of things that maybe our platforms or our products might not yet have.
Thank you. And we have just got a few minutes left of this webinar, so I might just invite our speakers, starting with you, Sumit, and then Majd, and then Theo, just to do the key takeouts from your presentation to leave our audience with today. Thank you. Sumit.
Thanks, Amanda. Look, from my perspective, we should be excited about how we're moving forward in the construction industry. There's great opportunities, as we know, so great mix of projects, opportunities to deliver some really innovative approaches. But I think foundational to any of this is ensuring that we do have the right structural elements in place. So, thinking about our organizational structure, our digital strategies are more broader than office space. So how are we encouraging and inviting field-based personnel into the conversation, because we need to find ways of making their life more improved and more exposed to new ways of delivering, and also getting their feedback into how we can improve those aspects to focus on ways in which we can improve the outcomes in the field.
Thank you for that, Sumit. Majd.
Yeah, we can hear it from all our customers now. Everyone is excited about AI, machine learning, and everything. But I always suggest that we need to do one step back and just do some house cleaning, make sure that our data is connected. We have a data-centric approach. We have everything stored in one common data environment. So that makes our life easier to understand what we have and what we are missing. So when we are deploying any new AI workflow or any AI analytic tool, we are sure that the results will be a positive one.
Thank you. Theo, closing remarks, outtakes.
Yeah, sure. I just want to say that it's a very exciting time. Like we have the chance to sort of like interact in our field with a technology that honestly feels a little bit like magic at times. And I think this is very exciting, and we need to start thinking outside of the box, and like we need to put obviously our expertise and all of our practices and the way that we approach engineering with our risk management approach, with transparency, with verification, and everything that we build outside of this technology. We need to bring it in because, and I really believe this, and I've said it a few times over the years, we have as much to offer to AI as AI offers to us. There are things that we can do and environments we can create for AI that can help build models that are actually doing many valuable things in the world, many of these that we do already. So yeah, I'm very excited, and I'm looking forward to see how that progresses.
Thank you. Yeah, it is very exciting times. And everything that we're doing at Engineers Australia around AI is engaging extremely large audience. Example, today we had over 1,000 registrations for this event. So thank you to everyone. And it is all the time we have for today. So please join me once again in thanking Sumit Oberoi, Majd Abudaga, and Theo Galanis for their time and input. I'd also like to warmly thank Engineers Australia's industry partner, Autodesk, for their ongoing support. As always, if you could take a couple of minutes to complete a short feedback form, which is linked in the description box below, helps us improve and plan for future sessions. Thank you again for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you at our next Industry Partners event. Thank you.